Now to a registered Democrat, Simon Johnson, professor at MIT Sloan School of Management and former chief economist at the IMF, is with us. He is now a Bloomberg News columnist as well. He's with us on the phone to discuss the election and its effect on the economy. Professor, thanks so much for joining us this morning. You say the Republicans, the ones who have won, are phony fiscal conservatives. What do you mean by that?
Well, they haven't, in any of the things they've discussed, have been willing to take on the main issue, which is the financial system. The financial system blew up. That increased debt relative to GDP by 40 percentage points, 40 percentage points, and those risks are still there. These fiscal conservatives, so-called, didn't show up to try and constrain the banks. In fact, they've taken a lot of banking money in this midterm election campaign, by all accounts. It's going to be fascinating to see if they can really put anything substantive on the table with regard to the budget.
Speaking of the banks, Simon, we all know that the banks plowed tons of money, as you point out, into some of these lobbying efforts. Is this Republican victory in the House going to constitute something of the free pass for the banks, or is Dodd-Frank going to hold hard?
Well, I think the banks are absolutely hoping to undermine Dodd-Frank. We're still in the rulemaking phase, as you know. The Volcker rule, for example, still wide open. What's going to happen there? I think the big opportunity lies actually with the White House, funnily enough. If they really push Elizabeth Warren forward, Elizabeth Warren's messages are very compelling. They're about transparency. They're about fairness. A lot of people in the business community who I talk to, both non-financial and financial people, are very much in favor of that approach. She gave a great speech to the Financial Services Roundtable recently. So if the White House takes this opportunity and really pushes that theme, the Republicans are going to have a hard time. I mean, what are they going to do? Defend these totally unreasonable, unfair business practices that you see around some parts of the credit card industry, for example?
So, Professor, in the best case scenario, then, what happens?
In the best case scenario, we get serious about thinking about the deficit, and we recognize the link, the huge link between systemic risk in the financial sector, which has not been dealt with well, and what can happen to our budget going forward. That's the big 10-year risk, that the banks will blow themselves up again and we'll have another major recession with all the implications for the federal budget. Most of the damage to the budget, by the way, is done by automatic stabilizers. It's done by the fact you just collect less taxes in a big recession and you pay more interest on the debt because more debt goes out there. So that key issue has been dodged by everyone calling themselves a fiscal conservative. So I challenge them now. If you're serious about the budget, let's talk about the numbers. Let's look at the history. Let's look at the path. Let's look at the CBO numbers.
Well, Simon Johnson, we thank you very much. Bloomberg News columnist, professor at MIT Sloan, giving us the best and the worst case scenario in his view.